go. Hello, everybody. And oops, nope. 9 seconds. Here we go. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our session today on enhancing data integrity. I will be the moderator today, Renee LaBonte. I'm a Razor's Edge RENXT consultant with Blackbaud, and I will ask that you feel free to use the chat and enter any questions that you have into the Q&A. And now I'll turn it over to Hallie.
Thank you, Renee. Welcome, everybody. I appreciate you coming today to the session. We have plenty of time at the end for questions and answers, so make sure you're using the question and answer section, and then I also will invite you guys up to the stage if you're interested in having a conversation. I know that's easier for me sometimes than typing it out. I'm Hallie Guiseppe. I'm the Director of Advancement Operations at Alvernia University. I have been using Razor's Edge for more than 10 years now, and RENXT for about 8 years. I would appreciate everybody who's introducing themselves in the chat, and how about everybody drop in your favorite emoji, because that's just fun, and you'll see my favorite emoji there. If you ever got an email from me, you probably recognize that. So, okay. At Alvernia University, mission moments are a tradition that offer us an opportunity to reflect, and this is also a way that we embrace one of our core values of contemplation. So today I'm going to share this mission moment with you, and this is from Maya Angelou. When we give cheerfully and accept gratefully, everyone is blessed. I also thought it might be helpful because I noticed there's a lot of brand new people here at the conference this year, and being a session for low and or no code, I thought that I would just drop in a slide for some resources for you. Congratulations, your first resource is that Blackbaud offers us, often at a low cost and sometimes for free, are these conferences. I encourage you to take advantage of all of those opportunities that Blackbaud gives us to enable some of the extensibility of RENXT. Also, if you are not already, I encourage you to join the community. The Blackbaud community is one of those places where you will make friends, and you will have so many people who are, you'll meet so many people who are facing the same problems that you are, and who cheerfully share their solutions in posts, in user group meetings, and on the ideas board. Also, I've dropped a link in here, and I will add that to the chat in a moment, that if you are brand new and you're just getting started, there's a fantastic resource on the community called the Getting Started Toolkit. Highly encourage that you take advantage of that as well. So why are we here today? So like most nonprofit organizations or Alvernia University, we are seeking ways to maximize our resources. And when I joined Alvernia as Director of Advancement Operations, our division had a reputation of being the black hole of fundraising. My vice president has challenged me to change this perception, but with a limited staff of operations staff, we had to get creative. So we have found that by decentralizing our data entry, so that we can involve the entire organization in contributing to our constituent database, we could accomplish some of these things. So traditionally, centralized data aims to ensure accuracy and consistency, but it limits how much data we can capture and how quickly we can capture it. So we found that leveraging Power Automate, we could discover, we've discovered that the decentralized data entry, it can be maintained. We can continue to enhance the data and create consistency, But in addition, it's also offered us opportunities for transparency, completeness, timeliness, and accountability across the organization. So we use Power Automate in our processes to make our data more accessible and actionable, and it's ultimately helped us do more with the resources that we currently have. There are many pieces of information in Razor's Edge, and as many of you know, we're juggling lots of data on a daily basis. And I want to give a shout out to Austin Brown here because Austin Brown is a database consultant and automation engineer with Pranger Solutions Group, and she's a good friend of mine. And she shared with me a list of data audits that she's found helpful. And this slide has been adapted from that list. If you're interested in that list, she is happy to share it with you. You can reach out to me or directly to Austin, and we'll make sure that you get a full list of all of the sub audits that are included in all of this that's rounded up at there. So then we're going to jump over here. We're going to say, okay, so these are the 3 audits though that I'm going to share with you today that we're going to walk through in a demo. These are 3 that we currently have running at Alvernia and has saved us a lot of time, and we have found to be very valuable. Okay, now I'm going to jump over to our video. So today we're looking at the opportunity linked gift audit. And the first step that we're going to do is we take a look at how frequently we want this flow to run. We can set that up by editing this step here. Currently, I have this running once on Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, which happens to be right after our gift processor's time frame each day. This next step here is actually part of Alex Wong's error handling. And what we will do is I have linked to his 2023 BB Dev Days presentation on what is going on with this. So we're going to skip over that for now because you can look at that later. Next, we're setting an array for collecting any information. If something isn't matching up and we want to know about it, we're going to collect the information in this array. This string for the environment ID, you're going to update this to be your own organization's environment ID, which can be found in that URL at the top of your RENXT when you're logged in. This is part of what will allow you to create clickable links in that email later on. And then here, this variable is kind of where the adding up of all of the gifts happen. We're going to be populating the gifts into individual gifts that are linked to each individual opportunity and add them up here. And that's going to be how we can compare the numbers, the total number of gifts to the total amount funded in the opportunity. Now, those are just getting set up, but the actual work is going to happen here inside this scope. So the first thing we're going to do is grab that list that we've created. So an active opportunity for me may not be what is considered an opportunity that's active for your organization. So you will create using your own tables, settings that you have at your org. You'll create that list. You'll plug that list right in here. And then that we go right into evaluating each of the opportunities on that list. Now, I will show you an example later, but it's important to note that this flow does not account for there being no opportunities on that list. We'll take a look at a condition you can add in and a different flow in a few minutes, but I just want to point that out that if you had 0 active opportunities, this flow will throw an exception. And you'll want to account for that by adding an extra step in between getting that list and then doing something with that list.
So now you'll notice we're in a loop and we're looping through each opportunity that's within that list. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to set this variable, that total sum where we're adding up the gifts. We're going to set that to 0. Now, I want to just shout out to the community because at one of the user group meetings, it was actually the community who helped me problem solve this. I originally had this down at the bottom thinking, okay, I'm going to add them up and then at the end I'll erase that out. But for one reason or another, I still don't actually understand why. It wouldn't work when it was at the bottom of this flow. So we moved it to the top and magically it now works. So we are just setting that total sum to null, meaning we're clearing it out. And then we're going to go get an opportunity. We're going to compose that funded amount. And because I'm going to add that information into the email later, I go ahead and format that funded amount. And then for each of those opportunities, I'm going to loop through all the gifts that are attached or linked to it. So I'm going to get that gift, and then I'm going to add that gift value to that incremental variable that we created up at the top. And that's going to loop through each gift that's on there. And then I'm going to take that total sum. I'm going to create it as a float, which just changes the format a little bit so that the system knows that it's the same as this number up here. And then I format it because, again, going to use it in that email if I need to. And then here, I'm going to just compare it. So I have a condition here that says I'm going to compare, does the formatted number of the funded amount on the opportunity equal the formatted number of the variable that we added up? If it does, I don't need to do anything else. If it doesn't, now I need to let my team know, hey, something's wrong. So we drop into a second scope here, and here we're going to get that information from that opportunity because I want to let my team know what the opportunity is. I'm going to get a little information about that constituent, and then I'm going to append it to that array. Notice these have that environment ID in there. That's what's going to make that linkable. Once I have all that in my array, the next thing is going to be a condition that says, well, if I don't have anything in my array, I don't need to do anything with it. But if I do, I'm going to create a nice, pretty HTML table, and then I'm going to send that off in an email to my team. Now, this last step down here, this setting this variable, I actually think I left in by accident. I'm not sure it's doing anything. I think that's part of my testing from earlier, but it's also not hurting anything. I just missed it when I cleaned this up to try and send it out and post it for you guys. So you're going to see that in there. I'm not sure it's doing anything. And then the last step in this is if anything fails within this scope here, if anything fails, something doesn't work right, for whatever reason, it's going to post a message. And again, this goes back to credits Alex Wong, who shared this at BB Dev Days last year. And this is just going to post in my Teams channel to say, hey, something's up with this specific flow. Okay, so next we're going to drop into our so this one is the non-alumni email unsubscribe audit. So this is so neat, guys, because Ashley Moose, she actually used the get HTTP request functionality to plug into that query API and so that we could use this to test out how we can get information and use that information. So one of the very first things I did is try to address an issue that's a really manual thing for our organization. We like to keep track of the engagement of our constituency. And one of the ways that we monitor that is by evaluating if people are unsubscribing from our email communications. And so that has been a manual process, and being able to use query to really get granular in the in the consent record. So when somebody opts or unsubscribes from email, there is a very specific comment that goes in on that consent record, and I can grab that using query, but I can't do it in RENXT right now. So what we did is we leveraged query, And then we send an email with a file that shows our team, depending on the constituency. I have it broken up. Non-alumni gets managed by a different area of our office from an engagement standpoint than our alumni. That gets sent over to our alumni team. So I have these set up as alumni email unsubscribes and non-alumni email unsubscribes. So this Ashley Moose created, and I honestly didn't change anything in this except for plug in my information. So the first thing you want to do is you want to grab that query ID. Now that's a little tricky in the beginning. If you have, but I found it to be pretty easy to find it on the parameters of the properties of the query itself. And if you have questions about that, you can reach out to me later. You're going to name your file. For me, I'm going to name it my non-alumni unsubscribe list. I like to throw the query ID in there because it makes it easy for me to reference later on if I need to. All this stuff here is initializing some variables that'll be used later in the flow just to check and make sure that all the data is getting pulled in from that query. Here we have the get that send an HTTP request that we discussed, and then she parses out the JSON here. Everything within this I didn't change a thing here because all of this is just that, okay, did I get all the information or is there more to get? And it will continue to loop through that task until there's nothing else for it to pull down. Then we get that information and we create a file on our SharePoint drive. Super easy. We get the content of that file and then we email that out to our team who we want to be reviewing that and doing that outreach if somebody who we know is really intimate with the organization accidentally unsubscribed. So we can reach out to them and help them resubscribe if that is the need there. Okay, so then our last flow that we're going to take a look at here, this is the overdue action audit. I like to have a nice tidy database. I don't like actions sitting out there overdue for months and months at a time. So for us, we would prefer to be 6 months, but we were kind of limited by the RENXT lists at this point because I can say last quarter, but I can't really say last 6 months or 6 months ago. So I actually am planning to maybe incorporate some of that query functionality in here once that new connector. Ooh, that reminds me. Not everybody has it's not generally available right now, but I was assured that Query API and a brand new query connector that would bypass all of this jazz here will be available later this month in June or early in July. So that if you don't already have that, that will be coming to you quickly. Okay, so jump in over here. I plan to use that connector in this so that I can get a little more granular on my the information that I'm looking at. But currently, we just have our list set up to look at if the action is from last quarter and it hasn't been completed yet. Here's what we want you to do with it. So again, we're going to just same steps as before. You'll note that all of these things are very similar to the flow that we looked at earlier for opportunities. But what we're going to change are the things in the scope. Now, I'm going to pause here because I think this is an important thing. When you're building out your flows, one of the things I've found is to just create a template of all the things that I often use. And this scope allows us to do that because I could just clear out everything within this scope and add new things later, but save everything except for what's in that scope. I can save all of this as a template, and then I can go in and recreate things really quickly and easily without having to set up all of the variables and grab those IDs and the array and all that stuff. And then of course, the current workflow running that error handling piece that Alex once shared with us. So, okay, moving on, we've got once again, instead of looking at opportunities or gifts or other flows, I'm looking at an action list. So that little step has changed from that previous flow. And now this is what I said we would talk about. Here, I may not have any overdue actions. In fact, since we've put this into play, we have way fewer. Our fundraisers are paying really close attention to their actions because I don't think they like getting the emails from ops team saying, hey, you need to take a look at this and do something with it. So not always do we have anything in this list. So here's where, like I said earlier, I need to account for that. So basically, I do that by just giving me a condition. Does the count in that list, so it's just looking at how many records are in this list, if it's greater than or equal to 1, then I want you to go ahead and do stuff. If not, you can just stop right there. And so when there is at least one action in that list, we're going to loop through each one of those actions, getting things like the constituents action information so that we can get the constituents information. We're going to add some of that stuff to that array so we can send it out. We're going to do, again, these are all those same steps. We're going to create a pretty table, and then we're going to drop that into our email with some fun text that says, hey, fundraisers, you got some work to do here. And that is that. Thank you so much. I have to stop it first. And now, okay, good to go.
Yeah, it looks like I have one question over here. If you're just starting out with Power Automate, what training or resources would you recommend?
That's a really good question. Well, number one, I recommend the community and that getting started. That getting started is it's all recorded. It's posted on YouTube. You can stop and pause and zoom in and look at the little formulas that they're sharing there. I'm kind of a jump in and sink or swim kind of person. So that really worked for me. You will get up and running with a very basic gift notification flow. You going through the getting started on the communication, which is, I think somebody earlier was talking about game changer for query API, but if you haven't done a single automation yet, that one it's a game changer for your organization, because I can't tell you, it's actually so hard to remember a time when we couldn't just have a notification that, hey, fundraiser, your constituent here has a birthday, or hey, fundraiser, this prospect gave a gift today. Those are so fundamental that we've forgotten, because now they're just a part of our everyday work. We've forgotten that was such a big deal at the time, but it was a really big deal. So that is like the community. Once you get through getting started, you're gonna get excited. You're gonna start sampling and doing different things and exploring different connectors. So that is the number one place that I would say to get started. Number two, getting connected with the community, because if you have a question, I've already mentioned some of these people, but Alex Wong, Austin Brown, Dan Snyder, Nicole Holtz, Carol Grant. These people, Ruben Schmidt, these people are out there to answer your questions. When I say community, these are like they'll become your best friends. You'll be stuck on something. You'll spend an hour trying to figure it out, and you'll post to the community, and they'll point out one little colon that you missed, and all of a sudden it works, and you're just so relieved, and it's wonderful. And then I also really encourage you to come to the user group meetings, because if you just don't even know where to start, that just watching what other people are doing will just get those creative juices flowing. Any other questions right now?
We do just have one request for you to share the Getting Started link.
Oh, sure. Let me drop that in again.
And another one, where do we access the user group meetings?
So that's a really good question. On the community, when you log in, let me just see if I can share my screen here. And oh, and I didn't even show you guys my final slide. Okay, let's see here. Sharing screen. Okay, so I'm learning. I think you have to stop sharing first, and then you share the screen. We'll go here, and then hopefully, are you guys able to now see my drive? Or my, nope, you're not. You're still seeing that. Okay, I'm gonna have to stop that then and share it because it only lets me share a tab, it looks like. So now that I have that tab open, I'll share that tab, new tab, there we go. All right, I bookmarked the Sky Developer Community because it's a place that I go often, as you will see. And then whenever you are in here, you'll have to log in if you're not logged into the community. And I'm on the Sky Developer here. I jump into events, I believe, is where I'm going to go. And we did not having one this week. I mean, sorry, this month. Why is that not right? Where are our... There we go. I'm not sure why they're not on the calendar, but you can see, so here's the Power BI one. I also attend that one. That's a whole nother thing, but it's the same Tuesday every month, except I don't think we're doing one this month because of Dev Days. So here is your link. You can actually, when you click in there, you can RSVP, and I believe it will send you a calendar link. And they also post the recordings, which I highly recommend you go back and watch if you have an opportunity. It's just such a fabulous resource. And then of course there's YouTube, Google. You know, I actually several of my co-developers have talked about LinkedIn Learning being a good source. Of course, you have to pay for that one if you don't have an account. And then you also have the what's the other one? Now, Guy in a Cube is Power BI, but I mean basically you have more resources than you'll have time to look at. So. But I highly recommend the Blackbaud tools because they're gonna help you connect into your database and take advantage of that extensibility.
Okay. And are you going to share the slides?
So the slides are, I uploaded the slides, but I haven't figured out how to download them from my other sessions. So I think that's going to be a question. But if anybody is interested, I welcome you to connect with me on LinkedIn, show over your email address. I am happy to share these slides with anybody who is interested. And in my slides, in the PDF of my slides, the links are clickable, but that didn't translate over to the platform either.
Okay. I think that looks like all of the questions right now. Anybody else with a question? We still do have a few more minutes.
Okay. Well, I did have some prompts. If you guys are having trouble coming up with some questions, I'm interested to know, like, what are the data stresses in your organization? What are the really manual things that you would like to see automated? How would you use this tool if you had a magic wand? Data cleaning and preparing for an import. You know, at James, I'm doing the same thing. I actually will be working with a Blackbaud consultant starting in July. I'm hoping to get kickoff in June, but we'll see how that goes. I'm working on doing some using Power Automate to import some information. So I'm super excited about those projects. So maybe we'll see you, or I can be sharing some things that next year at BB Dev Days on that. Oh gosh, they're coming in fast now. Okay. How can I make it stop jumping? Sunsetting prospects from portfolios after no contact. Where'd it go? From a fundraiser. If somebody wants to hop on stage, I'm pretty sure if you raise your hand, we can invite you up on stage and then we can have more of a conversation, because this is going so fast. I'm having trouble keeping up. Various routine. Okay, Sunshine. Yep, routine data audits. That is, I have lots of other ones too. I have one that goes through and it looks at anybody who's given a gift. Do they have communication codes on them? So I'm a big believer in it. If somebody's in the database, they got to be there for a reason. And maybe they haven't given a gift. That's okay. But we run regular audits of our data that looks at things that we consider an active constituent. And if they're not an active constituent or an active prospect, which would be considered an active constituent according to our definition, they go into an automated audit that says, it sends out a list to our team, and weekly our entire division will get an email that says, this group of people have been identified for archival. If they are not to be archived, let us know. And we've used some add-ins to, if the constituent or the fundraiser or the team member doesn't have access to make updates, to enter the information that says, yes, these are active and live constituents. We have a service request option that it's just a Microsoft form that I plugged into RENXT, and they can fill that out. And then our operations team, we have a fantastic operations team. They will make sure that those constituents get updated and that they get pulled out of that status of review for archival. Anybody else who we don't get communication about gets put into approved for archival at the end of the week. And then once a month, we go through and we export all of the information on those constituents. Now, we do have some rules that we follow. Like, we won't archive any constituent who's had a gift within the last 10 years, things like that. But we'll run all of those checks, and then we remove them from the database, which is fantastic whenever you're facing things like constituent band limits, right? If you're an organization and you haven't renegotiated a new contract recently and you're really close to your band limit, you may want to have a really close eye on who's getting added and who's in there but isn't being productive. And circling back to the constituent code or solicit codes, if we're not communicating with them, what's the point of them being in there? Now, there are situations, for example, our alumni will never take alumni out of our database. And at the heart of our database, it is our alumni database, but we also use it for our external stakeholder communication tool. It's just such a great resource. Power Query, Carlene, I know you've told me before, and I'm going to be picking your brain sometime, because I've got some ideas on Power Query and how I can make that useful in my import flows. We're using Power BI. So Catherine, I had a Power BI project this year. It was so exciting. I worked with Rebecca Singquist on that, and she is fabulous. If anybody has had an opportunity to work with Rebecca, you know what I mean. She and I worked through, and we have some fabulous reports that we've created that actually were the catalyst for some of our data audits. So when it comes to our grants opportunities, we were able to incorporate like pipeline, like looking forward, what grants have been approved, what grants do we expect, how much do we expect, how much has been funded on that. That gets all through that opportunity and that linking and making sure those data points are all cleaned up, because then it gets reported out on that dashboard and added up to be tracking our campaign progress, because we're in a comprehensive capital campaign right now. Let's see.
We have a couple more questions.
Great.
How did you address concerns about donor data being filtered up to Microsoft, as in your privacy policy?
Oh, filtered up to Microsoft? Well, we're a Microsoft organization, so our entire university, we use single sign-on. Our entire university is in a Microsoft bubble, I guess you would say. So nothing really ever leaves that bubble. We use SharePoint, we use OneDrive, we use Microsoft Forms, we use, but all of that stays within that Microsoft environment that is our Alvernia, I guess domain might be the right wording. So I even have a gateway that we created with the help of IT that allows for automated updates of those dashboards I was just talking about. And all that though resides within our Microsoft organization bubble. So that might change. I know Dan Snyder is a Google shop. I think maybe that changed since I'm not sure, but I know that he has done a lot with this through Google. So maybe that's something that he has to account for. But we really haven't had any issues or concerns come down from our IT division at all. Once we were granted permissions, I mean, we have communication and things like that, but nothing really leaves that environment. I hope that answers your question.
All right. Can you use Power Automate to run global changes on a schedule?
Well, so it is. The answer is no, because if you're probably talking about global changes within the database, so it's not like you can plug in and say, initiate a global change. However, you can do a similar process and using Power Automate. And so I'm trying to think of one that maybe, well, I mean, my solicit code audit probably is pretty close, is because I just have a list of people, and then I use Power Automate to look through this list, although it's a little more precise, because in my Power Automate, I can say, well, if they have this code that says do not contact, then don't add the solicit code. If they have this solicit code, then don't add this code. So I can do a little more fine tuning within the Power Automate, whereas using global add, I'd have to really pick through that query and make sure, and I would typically create it as a query list and, remove specific people from it individually, or, remove groups of queries from it. If you know what I'm talking about, I might say, okay, I want to check out all my alumni, make sure they all are receiving the alumni newsletter, unless they've said, I don't want to be contacted, or unless they said, I don't want email, or unless they said that, I don't want this specific communication. Then I would have to pull those all out using a query. I would say, here's my alumni, pull them out, and then I would globally add all of that solicit code to all of them. Whereas within Power Automate, I actually just start with my list, and I would say, if it's already there, skip them. I don't need to look at it. If it's not there, look for these things that would take them out of it. So it's just a different way of doing it. So the answer is yes and no.
Okay. Let's see. Oh, somebody would like you to repost the error handling method link because the first one didn't work.
Oh, didn't it work? Okay, let me see if I can just copy the link there. Copy that link. And that you could also just search that on the BB Dev Days YouTube channel. It was, let me see if I can, it's called Power Automate Exception Handling. And it was from 2023, last year's BB Dev Days. The presenter was Alex Wong.
Okay.
All right.
Let's see. Can this pull info on who is editing data?
Not yet. And I'm very disappointed about that. So there are some workarounds for that. I have explored this because it is something that our team, because we have decentralized data entry, it's very important for us to monitor new users. And so there are some tools out there, some audit tools, but basically how they work is they export information to what essentially is a data warehouse. And then you can monitor it from that data warehouse because that information will be housed there. There are organizations who are, third-party people in the marketplace who can offer that kind of service. My limitation is I don't want any more places to whoever's question was earlier. The one company that we evaluated was something audit. I can't remember. It was at least a year ago, but they were using Amazon warehouse services. So I would have had to given permission and set up an account and paid for an additional Amazon warehouse account in order to use their tool. And I just thought that was a little, it was more than I was willing to give for what that was going to offer me at the end of the day.
Okay. We've got just about 3 more minutes left. Probably time for one quick question. The basic dashboards and workflows in RENXT are limited. Is there a list of things that we can do better in Power Automate, Power BI, and Power Apps?
A list I'm not aware of, but I'm really glad you brought this up because I'm a huge believer in using the tool and the functionality within the tool until you can't. So we also, before we ever started with Power Automate, we started with workflows. And it's only when we hit the end of our ability to use workflow do we start looking past that. So I think you bring up a really good point. You have reports in RENXT, and we use some of those. Those we use for our KPIs for fundraisers because all that data is accessible. It's there. I'm not going to spend my time and resources to recreate things that already exist. But it's once you need that next step that you're going to want to look outward for it. As far as a comprehensive resource of what that is, at this point, I mean, I could tell you how I do it, and I think every developer has their own way, but that's the beauty of it, is you get to customize it to what your specific organization actually needs. Because Blackbaud is never, or any organization for that matter, there's no fundraising software out there who is going to be able to suit your specific needs for every single organization. So the best you're going to get is this extensibility, the opportunity to build it yourself.
Good.
All
Okay.
right. Thank you, everyone. If you found this session to be valuable, please fill out the session feedback that Renee's going to post, and feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. And thanks again. Have a great day.
Thank you all.